course, yesterday had a few accidents, especially after lunch. Nothing to tell you about in South Freeport towards Sugargonas. You've got traffic, and Main Road also got some traffic. And then just after that, straight up towards the interchange, approaching Piarco, Trin City to Uwe, and then volume towards Bartari, and then after Bartari, it's traffic into Port of Spain. Nothing out to the west that I can tell you as yet. All right. Of course, let's see who sent us hellos first thing this morning. Let's see. Today is Tuesday. Ken E. He said, good morning, Trev, Ray, and the PBS. Okay, thank you so much, Ken E. Trev, and Arima, good morning. Godzillion Valencia, good morning to you. DX, Maria Marva, Dennis, Reno Halasi, a.k.a. DJ Ray, out in Tampa, good morning. D. Pierre, Miss Ingrid in Tucson, Arizona. Ray out in West Palm Beach, Florida. Good morning to you. What is going on with you guys weather-wise? I hope your vehicle has enough gas in it. Oliver Manwaran, good morning. Carol Guevara, Ms. Maloney, Rena Bodu Jennings, CJ from New York, good morning to you. Mrs. Sack, good morning. All right. Mrs. Sack. All right, 24 degrees at Piarco International Airport, same at Crown Point in Tobago. And what the weather is going to be like for today in Trinidad and Tobago. Hot and sunny conditions despite the odd brief afternoon shower. Fair evening. Mild to moderate concentration of Sahara dust is present. Oh, I could feel that for sure. All right, maximum temperature forecast for today at Piarco will be 33 and 31 at Crown Point in Tobago. Let's check some temps across our listenership and viewership. Toronto, 2 degrees. Miami, you're at 19. Orlando, 14. New York, you're at 9. Atlanta, 7. London, wow, warm, 13 and windy. Same as in Tampa, but clear. Washington, D.C., you're at 9. All right, that's some temps on this, the 18th day of April. All right, let's say good morning, good night to Paul Richards. Good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning, Steve Khan.
Morning.
And everyone who may be listening at this and watching at this time.
Yeah. What's happening? It is Tuesday.
I'm all right. How are you going?
I was rushed this morning. Rushed.
And why is that?
Well, let's put it this way. So, when I woke up, I heard a puppy crying non-stop. So I said, okay, fine. I know the guys next door, they're building a house. So I said, all right, maybe, I don't know where it's coming from. So I rushed and I got dressed and I went next door to only realize they built a nice little pond. To only realize that he fell into the pond.
Oh.
There's no water, so he cannot come out. So he was crying non-stop. So I had to go into the pond, and of course, he's very skittish. And I had to grab him and took him out, and I rested him on the ground. Of course, his mother was right there waiting for him. But to catch him it's not too small of a pond. So I grabbed him and I put him out, and he ran to his mother, and they all ran outside. So that took me a good 10 minutes. But I had to figure out where the noise was coming from. So I went out in the road and I listened and I walked and I then I realized, oh, okay. So I went into the people's yard without permission.
Well, you were doing a good deed, so the police came.
It wasn't breaking and entering.
You would have had a valid excuse.
Yeah, it's not. You know what? It's not the first time. It's not the first time that I had to go across there. I had to go across there at 2 o'clock in the morning as well. One time. Poor dog. You know, they put this fishing line thing, and his foot got knot up in it, and he couldn't leave. And I had to do that before. But I did tell the owner when he came, I said, listen, I had to go in your yard the other day because of something. He said, yeah, no problem. That's when I saw him. So, yeah. So what's
So
going on? How is your symposium? I know you said you were going.
it was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay.
It continues today. It starts at 9 again.
Yeah, it does continue today. Well, I know about that, but we will see.
We will see. Of course, the regional leaders are in the country. And but let me tell you, Paul, I watched a few videos. One, there was a break-in at Pizza Boys in Maraval with 4 men. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
And then this is the funniest one. Then there was another, not a break-in, but a robbery. Then there was another robbery at a bar. But this is the funny thing about it. A robbery is going on, and everybody in the bar is walking around and sitting there like if it's nobody business.
Hmm.
I don't know if you saw that one as well.
A robbery in the barn. Everybody's sitting like,
I'll
what?
set it
Okay.
here. Let me get it here. And I go
Interesting.
in, this place is crazy. Then there was a shooting in La Portaine de Martin.
All while the crime symposium is going on.
All right, the crime symposium is going on. Okay,
Hmm.
I'm going to send you the one with the bar. It's hilarious. Everybody just moving around like it's nobody business. There was another robbery. A young lady left the RBC branch in Maraval by opposite Pizza Boys there. And she stopped for coconut water by by Chiconia.
Hmm.
And they tried to rob her and steal the car and everything. But they did get her purse. And this bank, it brings to me that within the last 2 weeks, I've heard of 4 robberies of people leaving banks.
Yeah, they're being targeted.
I mean, it's been like this for years, um, but it's more prevalent now.
Well, everything is more prevalent now related to crime.
I don't know,
Well,
and
I hope
to me,
they find some solutions coming out of this crime symposium that can be sustainable. I I don't know what to say
I
because
don't know what to say. And then a young lady wearing a police jacket in a party. I, s- Trinidad is not a real place.
yeah, but how you guys get your hands on a TTPS jacket?
Like, clearly, she knows someone, and the police officer is not too bright and gave her his jacket.
Are you sure about that, right?
And that's what's been reported. But
He,
the
a police
commissioner of
officer
police
gave
isn't.
her his jacket.
That is what has been reported. And she used that wrap around her waist and then she put it on. But again, she clearly is not too smart as well.
That story
It
missing
seems like
parts.
that story has a lot of loophole, but it seems like nobody has any sort of regard for the police service and the uniform.
Well, I don't know about nobody, but something is clearly awry
Yeah.
regarding access to police uniforms. In some instances, access to police weapons and ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
Something is not right in Denmark. I don't know. There were a lot of speeches yesterday, a lot of presentations
Yeah.
trying to be a police service commissioner. Earlier, Christopher Gray gave some interesting statistics. Her presentation wasn't bad yesterday. To me, she improved. Like clearly she rehearsed.
Mm-hmm.
And the commissioner from the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and 2 other commissioners of police presented statistics from their regions, which show that they also have serious issues related to crime and increasing criminality. But what was interesting, I think it's St. Lucia Prime Police Commissioner, and when you hear this, you'll freak out, indicated that between 2004 up to 2010, they were worried about 10 murders, and then it went up to 30 murders, and now in 2018 or so, and then by 2021, 22, they went up to 60 murders annually. And this
60?
and smart and very, very commendably, they are sounding great alarm bells because there are 60 murders annually. We would be so rejoicing if we had 60 murders annually.
Can you imagine?
We'd be claiming victory, but they understand when you are desensitized and you become accustomed to 60 murders, 600 not that far off.
No.
So if you have 60 murders and you're crying bloody murder, no pun intended, you're on the right track, because you don't want this to become normalized. You don't want people to get accustomed to hearing one murder a week, then 2 murders a week, then 5 murders a week, and that's how you get to where we are. Because over the years, it started to ramp up. 2008, there was a peak, and in 2022, we are the worst at 605. Because we as a country, as a population, became so desensitized to the escalating murder rate over the years. So they were very, very upset that the murder rate had doubled from 30 to 60 in about 4 years. And they are very alarmed because, of course, they're one of their main points of national revenue is tourism. And they are extremely upset and taking drastic steps
And
to...
this is St. Lucia you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I think it's St. Lucia. If I'm not mistaken, the presentation was from the St. Lucian Minister of National Police Commissioner. So he said they're very, very upset. The Royal Bahamian Police Commissioner also showed some of the ingenious ways that people were smuggling guns into the country. There was a video that he showed with a box of imported snacks and cereals, which on the top there were like cheesies, those kind of stuff, right? And at the bottom there were like about 3 or 4 boxes of cornflakes cereal. Open the box of cornflakes, it is sealed, vacuum sealed. And when you open the seal and you look inside the cornflakes itself, guns wrapped in cellophane. Inside the cellophane. And he says, given that one of the ways that Bahamas makes money is as a port container center, it's impossible for them to search every container. They don't have the resources like every other country. No country in the world searches 100%. There's a benchmark that I remember seeing when I was doing some research for a presentation. I think the benchmark is 1 in 30 if you're really good, but no country really searches every container. But they have such a high volume of container traffic through their ports. I don't even think they've reached that. And clearly, it's luck and chance whether or not you're going to pick up contraband in imported goods through the containers or not. We certainly have that problem in Trinidad and Tobago, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, the region is grappling. There were presentations. There was a panel discussion hosted by Attorney General Reginald Armour, which featured the prime ministers, including Dr. Rowley, talking about the issues that they face in their own jurisdictions and how they're grappling with increasing crime in the region. And one of the things I said yesterday, and I keep saying, is that they have to talk to the United States and put pressure on the United States as a region, because you can't do it individually.
No, I don't think so, no.
To put more resources into their border control to stymie the illegal guns coming primarily from the U.S. Because we don't manufacture guns here, we don't manufacture cocaine here, we don't manufacture heroin here, we don't manufacture methamphetamines here. So you have to put pressure on those points of origin to do more to stymie the flow out of their countries, which eventually comes into or through our countries as a region. If we go individually, Like William said it, what, 60 years ago or 50 years ago? 1 from 10 equals 0,
Hmm.
not 9. Regional integration is an existential imperative now, clearly. If we don't do it, we can't go it alone. We have to close up the region as a region. We have to secure the region as a region. And so I think the symposium is a good initiative, a great initiative, actually. I think if you're arguing about whether it's going to be effective, we'll see. They said the part of the plan is their objectives, and they're going to have implementable recommendations coming out of the discussions. My thing is that I think all the information coming out is known already or available.
Hmm.
However, there is merit in coming together as a region and talking, even if only symbolically. When regional leaders take time to come together and have an open discussion, broadcast and streamed, it shows the population in the region that they are serious at some level and that they are willing to prioritize the fight against violence and crime in the region. And that's a good thing. Whether or not their recommendations and application of the recommendations will be a fruit is another matter. Because guess what? The transnational drugs and criminals watching too.
Hmm.
They're listening to. They're
Hmm.
listening to the recommendations. You understand? How they carry the recommendations and operationalize them is something else. But all the drug lords, all the traffickers, all the corrupt business people who are fronting illegitimate business but really importing cocaine and illegal guns into various jurisdictions in the Caribbean, they're also listening. Who knows? One or two might have even attend them to behave myself.
Oh, behave.
You understand? So they're watching too.
Yeah.
So they are going to hear the overall broad framework of these strategies and are going to be able to, in some measure, respond. Am I crazy to think that?
No.
Yeah, they are going to be able to respond, and they're not. They may want to give up their business just so the illegal drug running and gang running business.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yes, there are corrupt police officers, as someone just messaged me, and some corrupt politicians in the region who are complicit, and in some instances who will have access to the information that will be gleaned from multinational corporation, and that's the problem. The
Yeah.
problem is twofold. One is, well, threefold. One is the overt agents of corruption and drug running and illegal gun running. The next layer is illegal, corrupt law enforcement. And the next layer is corrupt politicians in the region, all of whom are working together with the international drug running agencies and gangs
Hmm.
to apply the $1 billion trade, because it's $1 billion trade, and they may run over and leaving that just so. They're just not.
No.
They're not. So we shall see what happens.
What do you know what the murder rate is like in, well, you said St. Lucia's like 60. Barbados would be what?
I don't know.
Check that out.
They don't because it's a growing problem, and they have a tendency to, because a lot of their revenue depends on tourism, not to front page those things.
Exactly.
You understand? Because the front page, constant front paging of the murder rate will never be good for tourism or investment in the country for that matter. But
Yeah. Barbados
we've
is
had such an
34.
acute problem that it has now become, well, if it you know it goes in the media, if it bleeds it leads, so
Yeah.
kind of thing. uh, I wish the I think the symposium is a good idea. It is a commendable initiative. Whether it will bear fruit is another matter in a sustainable
Yeah.
way. I'm kind of ambivalent where that is concerned, because I've seen so many talk shops before, and green paper and white paper,
Well, not only that, we've had
and
people like
CARICOM talking about crime, and CARICOM talking about in, illegal guns through the region, and
Richard is
CARICOM
waiting
talking
to
about
come
illegal
in.
drugs through the region, and CARICOM talking about porous borders, and CARICOM talking
Mhm.
about Haiti with little or no success.
Yeah. Let Richard in before you get a.
You know?
Yeah.
Morning, Ragobarsingh.
Don't need any anxiety attack. You know, unmute. No.
Am
Hearing
I?
you. Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Morning, Ragobarsingh.
Hi, good morning, guys. Good
What's
morning,
happening?
Trinidad
What's
and
happening?
Tobago. And good morning to our listeners, wherever you
I
are.
tried to get to Mia, but her security pushed me back.
Okay. That was a strong push.
Yeah, boy.
Well, it was more than one security, yes.
Okay. Because you're not a small guy.
625.
I'm seeing some of the reports coming out. You know what is amazing to me coming out of that crime conference, Paul? And I suppose this is my philosophy. This is just my philosophical, I suppose, um, lens through which I see life. And I see Ralph Gonzalez and Mia Motley both blaming judges on a certain level for the granting of bail for murder. And of course, that I have always been an advocate for years that murder should be somehow constructed that you can get bail. Because no bail for murder automatically fed into an anomaly against the one of the basic principles of criminal law about you being innocent until proven guilty. That's the whole purpose of bail. There can be restrictions to bail in terms of, okay, you have several offenses, but a judge or judicial officer can deny you bail. But the repository of the jurisdiction of whether you got bail or not rests with the judicial officer, who's analyzing the circumstances. This could be a first-time offender, the circumstances of whatever your defense attorney is saying, what the prosecution is saying, and making a decision on whether bail should be granted or not. Now, bail is fundamental to our criminal justice system. When you have a particular crime where you say there is no bail automatically, regardless, there is no examination of the circumstances, I always found that to be an anomaly. And I always felt from a philosophical point of view, in accordance with what the intent of criminal justice at its very foundation lays, that you're innocent until proven guilty, and the prosecution has to prove your guilt beyond reasonable doubt. I never could understand why there was no bail for murder in terms of not giving not taking it out of the jurisdiction of the judiciary, in that they had no way to assess it. There was just a default position. I never agreed with that. And of course, case law has now happened that, basically aligns with my position in terms of how I see those things. But here you have Rav Gonzalez and Mia Motley now saying, oh, well, Rav Gonzalez particularly, what? I don't want to misquote them. How could you go and give somebody who is charged with murder bail? Let's be serious. Where do these judges live, Mars? Blaming judges for the issues of crime or criminality in the region is ridiculous and a thwarted sense of how the criminal element has been allowed to foster in the English-speaking Caribbean. Just looking for somebody to blame, and with an issue like murder, and saying, well, it's the judges and how they could give bail. And Mia Motley said, when I practiced law, nobody got bail for murder, naturally, because law evolves and case law evolves. It doesn't remain static. And as a lawyer, she should know that. So I just found these comments, and I'm not contextualizing them. I'm just going with the front page of one of the dailies this morning. I don't know how it was contextualized and how they said them. You were there, Paul, so you would have a better sense of it. But I just found that sentiment troubling, because it speaks to a sentiment of bloodthirstiness in terms of solving the problem, rather than sober analysis and science in how
Let's
do
just
you
start.
deal with the issue of criminality in the Caribbean.
let's just start with the fact that they're both politicians, right? And politicians have a particular mandate for each of their administrations, and particularly prime ministers, because Ralph Gonzalez also made a very, what I consider, controversial comment about opposition, right? Which was an interesting comment in the context of a regional crime, a regional crime conference, where he said opposition, oppositions in the region, generally, I'm paraphrasing here, are not going to support government because they want to get into power. That's basically what he's saying, right? Which I found was kind of,
I saw the quote actually.
it was a little infradig in that context. You understand?
That they oppose and don't propose.
Yeah. And I don't know that is always true.
Right.
But again, these are prime ministers who, and he said they are trying to get into power, but you're trying to hold on to power too.
Yeah.
You understand? So that's the other side of it. So don't pretend that you not also, a lot of your agenda and your mandate is not about holding on to power, retaining power. You understand? And I don't know that every opposition in every country never supports governments. They tend to hold governments to accord, which is part of their function in the Westminster system. You understand? And yes, he's right. At some level, they tend sometimes can't see the forest to the tree just to oppose. But to make a carte blanche statement like opposition do support government with crime, I thought it was a bit unmoving.
I saw a statement with regard to that.
You understand?
Yeah. In
And
terms of
I said, but then again, as I started the comment by saying, he's a politician, he's a prime minister, and he, like other prime ministers in the region, have their feet to the fire with rising criminality in each of the jurisdictions. So just like the Murphy statement and just like the bail statement, they are the ones who are under pressure to fix crime. So they will have a particular.
I get all of that, but there is, to me, a high responsibility when you're in power to get to the point of how do you solve this in terms of the dysfunctionality in families across the Caribbean, the lack of equity of resources.
Well, I'm glad you said that. You know, I wrote down 2 notes yesterday because of what I was hearing. And the 2 notes that I will expand upon in some time, in some weeks, is our economic and fiscal policies focused on promoting economic parity in society.
Yeah.
Because the inequity in society is one of the main factors driving crime. We know that. In particular, poverty, and at the level of poverty also. And 2, are labor laws and policies enabling societal equity in the context of people having the sense that they have an equal share of society. Because not everyone wants to be billionaires or millionaires, but they want to feel that their life moving forward. And very often, labor laws and policies in a country can help with that.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that ours are doing that, right? Some of the statistics that the Minister of Social Development, and it goes back to, I'm a tireless advocate of reform of education system. Because I understand what education has done for so many like you, like me, like, you understand? Because the blessing of education in our lives enabled us to do much better than many people. You know? And I'm not saying do better because we're better. I'm saying we have more opportunities. Let me put it that way. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
So accepting that, well, some children dancy and some children lazy is an archaic, outdated, backward approach to the children who are failing, the learners who are failing. You understand? It means the system has failed them and the region has not dealt with that effectively. It has not. And we are reaping the rewards of that in very large measure in criminality. Because when the society tells you from the time you're 5 and 4 and 6 and 7 and 8. Imagine you're told you're failing and you're a failure for the first 15 years of your life. What do you think you're going to do? Go where somebody tell you your value?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, more than likely in the arms of a gang leader who will tell you you have value if you kill somebody for him. Because the society tells you if you're not good in physics, chemistry, art, maths, law, and medicine, you are of less value. You understand? Or if you're not going to a prestige school, you are of less value. This is not to say people who don't go to prestige schools don't do well, but that's the mindset, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but across the region. And we know the issue, as I told Steve earlier on, we know all the issues they discussed in these 2 days, all the data available, all the mindsets and the proposals available, I have no problem with the conference. I think it's a great idea, a very commendable initiative because it shows regional leaders have prioritized crime and violence in the region. Let me start by saying that. But all the information is already available. What you do with it is what's going to make the difference. And you could have all the law enforcement you want. You could build how much jail you want. You can fix how much judiciary you want. If you don't deal with these societal inequities and structures that make some people feel less than some, you are always going to have crime.
Yeah. If they don't have an investment, they
and
don't
as
feel.
a region, the regional leaders need, they are labor and economic fora that are going on today, which is commendable because they really contextualize it in the various main factors contributing to crime. But whether or not they're going to do something about the inequities and the lack of opportunities of some groups, we will see. We will see.
How do you get your citizenry hopeful and invested in the future of your country? That's a key question. It sounds like a simple question.
And part
but
of
it's a
that
key
is making them
question.
feel they have more opportunities than the ones who are called big shots in any society. Because they
Yes.
keep seeing people getting richer and their lives are going backward.
And how much access and the access to a home, the access to those basic things all matter.
The education system that treats your child as a unique human being with some kind of gift and capability and not a burden and not a failure. You understand? But we don't seem to want to deal with those realities in the region. And social intervention programs, aka grants, may be commendable for a short-term measure, but handouts do not make people independent members of society. And sometimes, very often, the answer is a handout and a grant. A grant is a stopgap measure that may be needed in some emergency situation, but it does not give someone the ability to take care of themselves and feel like an independent contributing member of society. So don't tell me you give them $2 billion in grants because a grant is not sustainable. I have no problem with grants as an emergency measure, but you have to make people feel empowered or make them empowered to be able to take care of themselves and their families. And we have a grant mentality. You understand? I give you $2 billion in grants. What do you want again? I want an equal same society, economically and otherwise. So I hope that out of these 2 days, because I think it's a commendable, very commendable initiative.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's important, and I think
It's very important symbolically and visually.
I think it's important.
Yeah.
I may disagree with some of their positions or how they have articulated certain positions, but I mean, I think it
As I
is
say,
important to have this conference.
Dr. Ralph Gonzalez says opposition do support government. He's a politician trying to stay in power. Like every of the leaders who were there yesterday. You understand? And quite frankly, that is the mandate of quote unquote any political party. One trying to stay in power and one trying to get into power. Hopefully, at some points, they could find consensus on critical issues. You understand? And do the political confrontations otherwise, because there are some issues that I don't think anyone could argue that are important for both government and opposition and their constituents.
Well,
That's
one of
not
the suggestions that Mia Motley, Prime Minister Mia Motley proffered was the possible rotation of magistrates and judges throughout the Caribbean. So that, according to, let me not misquote,
Please don't.
let me just read the relevant section here with regard to what she said. What she's saying is rotate magistrates across the region, says Motley. Barbados Prime Minister Mia Motley yesterday made a call for the integration of judicial officers, specifically the exchange and rotation of judges and magistrates across CARICOM countries. Participating in the CARICOM Prime Minister's roundtable discussion at the Regional Symposium on Violence as a Public Health Issue at the Hyatt on Port of Spain, Motley said, "We need to start rotating judges and magistrates in the region to ensure that there is not the familiarity with counsel and other circumstances and things that people take for granted."
Well, it's an interesting concept. I have to think about it more.
Yeah. Well, you know, that argument by extension is one of the arguments who people who are for retaining the Privy Council use, because they're saying, for example, that these law lords in England, being away from the circumstances of the Caribbean in terms of who this person is,
Understanding the
etc.,
cultural
etc.
context.
Yes, they are that because they are far from it. Their interpretation of the law is very dispassionate.
It's not as nuanced as it should be.
Yeah, so that this, and they're saying that's a good thing. So that there
So
is
they
that
interpret the law
argument.
not based on emotion or culture, but based on the law. As
Yeah,
written.
based on the law. Basically, that's what they're saying, and that's kind of what Mia Motley is saying in a way, because she's talking about familiarity with counsel. Because of course, in all of these islands, you're going to have
It's small islands here.
yeah, and lawyers are still a small group, and senior counsel is even a smaller group. So that of course judges are going to be familiar with senior counsels or king's counsel when they appear before them. And she's saying that can have some level of influence on judges and magistrates. I don't know that I totally agree. I mean, the issue of I like you, Paul, the issue of rotating judges and magistrates is something maybe I need to think about. But I expect judicial officers, and now judicial officers are human, but I expect them to be professional in carrying out their duty in terms of weighing because senior counsels can lose cases and have lost cases in local courts. So it's a matter of, them being, weighing the issues before them, the
I think they
evidence,
should
etc.,
focus
and
more
coming to a decision.
related course. One of the revelations coming out of the Royal Bahamas Police Commissioner who presented yesterday, Early Christopher Gray wasn't bad yesterday. I commend her for her presentation. She was actually confident and she presented well. Let me put that on the record. I found she presented well, and of course they prepared the document well for her to present, but she presented it well. So,
Okay.
so
Good to know.
one of the things that came out of the Commissioner of Police in the Royal Bahamian Police Force was that they have a law that persons caught with illegal guns charged and go through the court system in 2 weeks.
In 2
2
weeks.
weeks. Hear me? Wow. That's impressive, because they realized there was an issue with backlog of those cases. And as you say, people could get bail and be out and commit more crimes. So the issue was not to deny bail. The issue was pass you through the system in 2 weeks, and whether you're innocent or guilty, you move on. We could only dream. As I was telling Steve earlier on, I think it's St. Lucia. I stand corrected if I'm wrong, but I think the St. Lucia Commissioner of Police said that they went from in 2004 to 10 murders, and 2010 to 30 murders, and by 2022 they were at 60 murders, and they're alarmed at 60 murders annually, which is commendable, because you don't want to be desensitized until they get 600. We would rejoice if we had 60 murders a year. Not rejoice in the fact that people have died, but rejoice in the rate
Well,
of
St. Lucia
service.
is St. Lucia is a smaller country, so per capita,
Well,
I don't
no,
know how
but they
how
also
that
they
how
also
that.
understand that crime affects their tourism product.
Well, yes,
Yeah. The question I'm suggesting this morning is: do you agree with Prime Minister Rowley that changing the National Security Minister will not fix crime?
Well, you said that yesterday.
Yes. He was asked, of course, by the media about, there have been calls, and the opposition went yesterday to ask regional leaders to tell the Prime Minister to change the Minister of National Security, which is ridiculous to be
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
As if regional leaders could tell the Prime Minister to change any of his cabinet. As if he could tell them to change any member of their cabinet. Mrs. Pasabi was in attendance yesterday with several of her key colleagues in the opposition. But for the opposition to go and tell regional leaders to tell Dr. Rowley to change his national security is really no.
What's the
Yes,
question again? Phrase it again for me.
the question is: do you agree with Prime Minister Rowley that changing the national security minister will not fix crime? To contextualize it, he said, over the last decade, there have been scores of changes to national security ministers in the previous administration, and is only Hines. There was Stuart Young was Minister of National Security before for Dr. Rowley. Was there someone else
Before whom?
before Stuart Young?
Yes. Well,
Brigadier.
if you're looking at the two terms, yes.
Yeah, the two terms. So he said changing.
There was Brigadier somebody.
It's not Sandy.
Antoine, was he? Was it
Antoine.
Antoine?
It could be Antoine.
Wendell
Anyway,
will
he
know that
said
off the top of
the
his head.
ministers of national security in the last 10 or so years have been changed scores of times, and crime has not been fixed. So that's evidence to show that changing the ministers will not fix crime. So that's the suggestion this morning. Your papers, go ahead, please.
Yes, I do have papers.
We have Giselle Chance from Vision and Mission coming up after 7 o'clock. So we look forward to chatting with her, because another thing that came up yesterday is the rehabilitation and restorative justice systems in each country. So we're chatting with her
All right, great.
later on.
Judges under fire. I'm with the Daily Express for today. St. Vincent PM. How could you go and give somebody who is charged with murder bail? Let's be serious. Where do these judges live? On Mars? Barbados PM. When I practiced law, nobody got bail for murder. But when I look at the stats, not only in the Bahamas and Barbados, but all through the region, the people who are causing the greatest problem are charged with 2, 3, and 4 murders. Something is fundamentally wrong.
Or we could craft a question based on that bail thing too.
Yeah, which is sensational because...
Yeah. Do you agree with the Barbadian and St.
Yeah,
Vincent Prime
which
Minister?
is kind of sensational because, of course, if somebody is charged with 2 or 3 murders, obviously a judge is not going to give them bail.
Yeah.
But the discretion should not be removed from the judges. That's a fundamental issue. But they, of course, they're sensationalizing it. Maybe as you're right to the audience to whom they're speaking, who are
Of
voting.
course.
Alexander Heroics, Scarborough secondary strikers, spares TNT's blushes as under 20s, edge Guadeloupe 3-2. So that's the front and the back of the Daily Express. Trinidad and Tobago Guardian for today. And just in case you didn't know, today is Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. Time for action. That's the headline that the Guardian went with. CARICOM expected to unveil an anti-crime plan today. U.S. takes licks for flow of guns into region, and Rowley still sticking with Hines. All of that is on the front page of the TNT Guardian today. 4 more cops quizzed in corruption ring probe. On the back page of the TNT Guardian, Alexander guides TNT to victory, which is the same main story basically on the back page of the Express. So that's it for the front and the back of the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian for today. The Newsday, what did they go with? Law knocked at CARICOM crime talks. Leaders hit bail for murder. There's a picture of Dr. Rowley and the Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness. That's the front page picture. Kamla, low expectations on crime talks. On the back page of the Newsday, Alexander Hatchick puts under 20 closer to CONCACAF World Champs. TNT, a win away. Students, the focal point for Commonwealth Youth Games. That's what's on the back page of the Newsday this morning. And of course, that's it for your 3 dailies in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago this Tuesday morning.
All
Over
right.
to you, Steve.
What's that?
I said over to you.
Thank you. 10 minutes before the hour of 7 o'clock, let's give the results of our morning poll that we asked you yesterday. Do you think the regional crime conference will result in reduced crime in the region? That was our poll yesterday. 83%, 83, said no. All right, let's get into this morning's poll.
All right, so this morning's poll, which Paul would have put out this morning, is: do you agree with the Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, that changing the Minister of National Security will not fix crime? That's our
Oh, I thought
poll
we were
this
going with the
morning.
bail. Okay,
No, this is what we suggested.
all right.
So, do you agree with Prime Minister Dr. Rowley that changing the Minister of National Security will not fix crime? That's our poll this morning. What do you think? Do you agree with Prime Minister Rowley, Dr. Keith Rowley, that changing the Minister of National Security will not fix crime? That's our poll this morning. What do you think? 222-TALK, 222-8255, North Americans, 866-525-1099. That's absolutely toll-free, by the way. People in other parts of the planet, 1-868-222-TALK, 222-8255. People on the web and the app, of course, you know what to do. Use the messaging portal to send your yays or nays with regard to our poll this morning. I'll give it to you one more time. Do you agree with Prime Minister Dr. Rowley that changing the Minister of National Security will not fix crime? Do you agree with that statement? Yes or no?
All right, 222-8255. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Yes, I agree with him.
All right, thank you. Good morning. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, gentlemen. Yes, I agree.
All right, thank you so much. Let's see. Trevin Arima says yes. Beefy Smith says no. Ish out in Malik says no. BCC, yes, I agree. Miss Ingrid in Tucson, Arizona, no, I do not agree. CJ in New York says yes. Good morning, caller.
You have to say it for me? Totally agree. Yes.
All right, thank you. Launch Park says yes. Ken E says no. Piggy Ray, morning, Piggy Ray. Yes, I agree. Lorna, good morning, Lorna. Carly Indy, nope, don't agree. Carol Guevara says yes. All right. Of course, you can also hit us up on our message board. Yes or no. Um,
Our poll this morning: do you agree with Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley that changing the Minister of National Security will not fix crime?
yeah,
Because there have been calls for him to remove Minister Hines,
yeah.
and that was one of his responses. Do you agree with Dr. Rowley, with Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, that changing the Minister of National Security will not fix crime? That's our poll this morning.
All right. Good morning, Lincoln Francis, Dwight Harper, Riri, West Palm Beach. Ms. Maloney says yes. DJ Ray says no. All right. 222-8255, 612-8255. Toll free North Americans, 866-525-1099. Do you agree with the Prime Minister that changing the National Security Minister will not fix crime in TNT? That's our poll. Good morning, caller. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Steve. My answer is yes.
All right, Dinsley, thank you so much. Dennis, yes, I do agree. Wayne out in Simcoe, Ontario, Canada says yes. All right. 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. Rena Boodoo Jennings says yes. How many have been changed over the years? Is what she's asking. Long Islander says no. Thank you so much, Long Islander and Rena. Yep, 4.5 minutes before major news at 7. Ken E. out in Harlem says yes. Thank you, Kenny.
So do you agree with Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley that changing the Minister of National Security will not fix crime? That's our poll this morning. What says you, listeners? What's your opinion? Do you agree with him that changing the Minister of National Security will not fix crime? Or do you disagree and think that changing the Minister of National Security might help fix crime? Which one is it? Do you agree with him? Yes or no?
Garth Celier says yes, I agree. Oliver Man Warren, I most definitely agree. Thank you, Ollie. All right, give us a message on our message board via our platforms.
Of course, I'm still taking your calls at 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, absolutely toll-free at 866-525-1099. And people, of course, on the web and the app, you know what to do to send your votes. And if you don't, well, I'm telling you what to do. Look for the messaging portal on those platforms and send yay or nay.
Yeah, all right. Simple. Do you agree with the Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, that changing the national security will not fix
The Minister of
crime?
National Security.
The Minister,
Yeah.
will not fix crime in TNT. That's our poll. Got some votes already online. Let's see. Mega Mouse. Hey, I haven't heard from you in a long time, Mega Mouse. My answer is yes. Thank you, Mega Mouse. 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. That's a toll-free number.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, 2 more minutes again.
Do you agree with Dr. Rowley, Prime Minister Dr. Rowley, that changing the Minister of National Security will not fix crime? That's our poll this morning. And ye can weigh in on it and tell us what you think as a listener to the program. Do you agree with him? Or do you think, no, maybe he is wrong? Maybe changing a Minister of National Security can help fix crime? Or do you think, no, it doesn't matter? Will not help.
That's it. Simple.
But will not fix crime. The news it would help. So 222-TALK, as we have about a minute and a half again. 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. People on the web and the app, you can continue to send your votes on those respective platforms.
Yep. D says yes. He said we need to change the Prime Minister for that to happen. Maraval on the road. He's right. Yeah, he's right. You saw that video with the bar and the robbery, and everybody moved around. That is not a robbery going on, right?
That is the most bizarre video
That is bizarre. People is going
I
on
have yet to
normal.
watch. As you could see from my statement that I sent in a group, I didn't understand what I just watched because
Yeah.
is that in Trinidad?
Clearly,
I don't know if it's in
it
Trinidad or
looks
not.
like it.
Because sometimes videos could look
And
like
then
it's
the
Trinidad,
Pizza
but it's
Boys
not.
robbery in Maraval.
But I saw that one too.
Yeah.
But that one with the people seemingly sitting down drinking and these people are
Walking
robbing the
around.
bar and they're looking unconcerned. They're like, you do your robbery, we are not perturbed.
Yeah, we're not taking you on. Do what you gotta do. Weird. All right, let's get into our major news. All right. Gregory is in. Evie is off, I guess. Yep. Major news starts right now.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says changing a national security minister is not the answer to fixing crime. Attorney General Reginald Armour reveals the government is eyeing up legislation to speed up the length of time it takes for cases to be heard before the courts. The TTPS and the Police Complaints Authority have both initiated investigations into social media videos of a woman wearing a police-issued jacket and a pair of tights at a lime. And don't ignore the views of young people, cautions the Prime Minister of Grenada as the regional symposium on crime continues today. Details in a moment. Good morning with your news to 7 a.m. on Power 102 Digital. I am Gregory McBurney. Changing a national security minister is not the answer to fixing crime. This is the view of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. Speaking at yesterday's regional symposium on crime, he seemingly addressed calls for National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines to be fired after TNT experienced one of the most violent Easter weekends in its history. Dr. Rowley cited the constant rise in crime despite the numerous changes in the Office of National Security Minister over the last decade and a half. He claimed that this was evidence that changing a National Security Minister does not impact crime levels and is therefore not the solution.
In recent years, we, Trinidad and Tobago, had 10 ministers of national security sourced from career politicians, including that of Prime Minister, the military, and the private sector. One administration, PNM, had one minister who served for 7 unbroken years, grappling with the upsurge of violent crime and insufficiency of policing. A succeeding administration, the UNC, in a 5-year term, had 5 national security ministers with junior assistants, with tenure ranging from a few months each to 2 years. This current administration, PNM, has had 3 ministers in 8 years. And the one indisputable fact in all these musical chairs is that the violence has not abated. It has in many instances increased and become even more cynical. Clearly, the problem does not exist and grow because of a shortage of ministers or even ministerial output. This forum has been long in coming.
Attorney General Reginald Armour said the government is about to bring to the cabinet a bill which will eliminate preliminary inquiries and speed up the process of taking indictable offences straight to the High Court. Speaking on day one of a regional symposium on crime as a public health issue yesterday, the Attorney General said the trial by judge alone is another concept which is also on the agenda of the government. The AG said he's confident these legislative measures can help bring about progress in the justice system. The Caribbean Court of Justice, the AG said, remains on course to do work which will be of great help to the region, even though the Port of Spain-based CCJ is not the final appellate court of all the Caribbean countries.
Also, bring in an amendment to the trial by judge alone to introduce lay assessors, to bring trials, and the statistics are phenomenal in our trial by judge alone, where we have abolished juries on the election of the accused, and we're going straight to trial. So those are examples of where the legislative initiatives can make a difference, and I entirely endorse the concept of using those seeds around the Caribbean that we can enhance our capability.
One regional leader is asking the United States for increased efforts to address the war on guns in the Caribbean. Speaking during a roundtable discussion on the first day of yesterday's regional symposium, Prime Minister of Jamaica Andrew Holness said in the past the region has assisted the U.S. to support the war on drugs. Mr. Holness said greater resources must be placed on international security, gathering intelligence, interdiction, and prosecution. He said Caribbean leaders must be united on the call to prevent the flow of drugs and guns in the region. Mr. Holness added that ports, airports, and points of entry must be secured and laws put in place where relevant relating to this area.
We must also consolidate our efforts to lobby, particularly the United States, to assist us as we have assisted them in the war on drugs. They must assist us in the war on guns. It is the greatest unfairness that we have diverted resources from other areas in which we could have spent it to fund and support a war on drugs. By the way, the two things are related.
Prime Minister of Grenada Dixon Mitchell says young people and their concerns must be heard and the input given consideration. Mr. Mitchell said this is where social media use can be capitalized upon. Speaking at yesterday's roundtable discussion, he said there are times when violence between partners and children are tolerated, and social media usage can be accessed as one of the means to create positive content and bring about renewed and positive conflict resolution. Mr. Mitchell said the aim is to establish opportunities in which social media can be used. He also looked at the impact of social media through the period of COVID-19 and the implications of this on students and young persons.
What we have to spend time on is content development developed by young persons. And we can use the creative economy as one approach to do that. Arts, music, to re-engineer the behavior of the next generation of Caribbean citizens to say that there are alternatives to resolving conflict. There are alternatives to career path that does not involve ultimately guns, drugs, and gangs. And I think if we spend, it is not going to be easy, but I think if we spend the time there, we are more likely to be able to have that behavioral change. And I believe that is where the public health issue comes in, to ensure that we are not always in response or reactive mode.
Commissioner of Police Ula Hayward Christopher has ordered an investigation into a video which has gone viral on social media purporting to show a woman in what appears to be a TTPS-issued police uniform. In the video, the unidentified woman is seen wearing a TTPS-issued jacket and a pair of black tights while in attendance at what appears to be an outdoor line. The Police Complaints Authority has also launched its own independent investigation into the matter. It revealed yesterday that it is aware of the videos and photographs circulating on social media of an individual at a social event partially attired in a TTPS-issued uniform jacket. The PCA invited members of the public to share any information they may have related to the investigation and reiterated that any information received will remain confidential. And now for a look at the weather forecast. For the period today until midnight, Trinidad and Tobago can expect predominantly hot, sunny, and hazy conditions despite the odd brief afternoon shower. A fair night is to be expected. There is a mild to moderate concentration of Saharan dust present. Sensitive persons are advised to take the necessary precautions. Seas are slight to moderate with waves up to 1.5 meters in open waters and under 0.5 meter in sheltered areas. The forecast maximum temperature for today is 33 degrees Celsius in Trinidad with a high of 31 degrees Celsius expected in Tobago. Currently, it is 25 degrees Celsius at the Met Office in Piarco, 26 degrees Celsius in Crown Point, Tobago. And now to recap your headlines. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says changing a national security minister is not the answer to fixing crime. Attorney General Reginald Amor reveals that the government is eyeing up legislation to speed up the length of time it takes for cases to be heard before the courts. The TTPS and the Police Complaints Authority have both initiated investigations into social media videos of a woman wearing a police-issued jacket and a pair of tights at a lime. And don't ignore the views of young people, cautions the Prime Minister of Grenada as the regional symposium on crime continues today. Well, that's what's making in news this hour. I am Gregory McBurney. Listen out for news headlines coming your way at 8 a.m.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All righty, 11 minutes after the hour is 7 o'clock. Thank you, Gregory, for our news brief. Thank you so much. Of course, we have major news again coming up at 8 o'clock. All right, right here on Power 102 Digital, with major news happening again at noon. All right, traffic-wise, yeah, it's heavy. San Fernando, usual spots. Solo is not too bad. Rivulet Road is heavy. You're going to get traffic from Chaguanas, pretty much straight to the interchange. Ibis Gardens towards Curep. Santa Rosa, straight up towards Piarco, straight into Port of Spain. Maraval, Lower Santa Cruz, Diego Martin, Eastern Main Road. All routes. You've got some traffic as pretty much school has completely reopened today. Everybody should be out between today and tomorrow, actually. All right. So let's get the results of our morning poll. Do I have any more votes? I'm checking. Sherry says yes.
I don't know if he's back.
All right, our poll
Sorry.
this morning.
Sorry, yeah.
Do you
Go ahead,
agree with Prime Minister Dr. Rowley that changing the Minister of National Security will not fix crime? We had 28 people voting on the poll this morning.
Yeah. You got Sherry's vote, and Lando says yes, he's right.
That's a new vote that just came in?
Yeah, those two.
Well, we had 30 people voting on the poll this morning. And of the 30 people voting, 23 of you said yes, you agree with Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. 7 of you said no, you do not agree.
Edmund Dillon was the previous Minister of National Security under Dr. Rowley.
Right, and it wasn't Antoine, you know.
Yeah,
but you're right.
So
Edmund Dillon. He's now an ambassador somewhere, isn't he?
somewhere in the European Union or something like that.
Of course, our poll is going to stay up until tomorrow morning on our mobile app and on our website, which you can vote on, and we give you the final results come tomorrow morning.
I know Giselle Chance is logged in. I don't know if she's ready for us.
Yes, I am.
7:13. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, Dwight, Lando. Good morning, Giselle.
Good morning, Paul.
Morning,
How are
Jack.
you this
Richard
morning?
and Steve.
Hi, good morning.
I'm happy to be with you gentlemen this morning. Also a pleasant morning to all of your listeners locked on.
Thank you so much.
You're a sight for sore eyes with these two people I have to work with in the morning.
Oh, thank you.
So good to have a pleasant face on the screen. All right, for those who may not know Giselle,
No.
would it be correct to say you're the widow of Wayne?
Yes.
Is that still applicable? And of course, Wayne
Yes,
Chance
it is
was
applicable.
one
Widow
of
of the late Wayne Chance.
shining examples of how somebody can turn their life around, although they may have had a rough start, and he was able to do that, and also provide an institution called Vision and Mission,
Yes.
which he founded, I think, with yourself, to focus on rehabilitation and restorative justice, and you have carried on the mantle commendably. So we wanted to have a conversation this morning. I know you're heading off to the symposium this morning later on, so thank you for taking your time. I know we're going to make you a little late. We're not going to keep you past half an hour.
Okay.
Right? And a lot of what some of what was discussed yesterday is the issue of restorative justice, effective restorative justice system. So just give us an overview of what has been happening with Vision and Mission since you took over, and we can continue from there.
So Vision on Mission would have experienced a season of great change and transition coming out of the passing of my late husband, Mr. Wayne Chance, in November of 2019. And I had less than about 4 months to get my bearings, and along came COVID. And I think all of us understand the great impact COVID has had on the world and our country, our individual lives. And certainly it affected Vision on Mission as well as other institutions and NGOs throughout the country. And so it seemed as if we were facing challenge after challenge. You know, my husband was a very passionate, strong leader, very charismatic. So, and he was grassroots. You know, I have not served any time in prison, and I don't intend to, all right? But he would have had the ability to connect with our clients in a very real way because of the path that he would have walked in life. So being a single parent, female at that, not having any experience within the prison itself, being incarcerated or anything like that, many persons, you know, found it very, what should I say, adventurous of me to take on the helm of leadership. But for me and my family, Vision on Mission is about legacy. It's also about service to our country. And it really comes from our heart to see Trinidad and Tobago a better place, to see persons change their lives, and to have a country that we can feel safe to live in. So, and I want that as a mother. I want that as a woman for my children. So that is where my passion comes from. All right. And
what was the biggest challenge for you in moving into that role? Of course, Wayne walked the walk and lived the life, and then we have a different dynamic with men and women.
Yes.
So, and I know you were steering the organization, but was it challenging in any way?
Oh yes, there was a bit of a learning curve as far as not the day-to-day runnings of an NGO, because when we registered the NGO in the late 1990s, I was there with him working behind the scenes doing a lot of the administrative work. Where the challenge was to me was to find my voice in connecting with the clients, all right, as men, because I'm a woman. And we also have, you know, different perceptions, all right, among this particular section of the population. So I really had to connect with them on a very real level. And what it involved is me really sharing my experiences and my understanding of what they are going through, all right, and also being married to someone who would have been incarcerated and understanding the challenges that he would have had to go through. So it took some time. I can't tell you that I went all gusto into it. I had to go through the issue of grieving as well as becoming a single parent. There was a lot of things happening at the same time. But by God's grace and with the support of my family and the board of directors of Vision on Mission and many other well-wishers, I was able to make that transition.
You're muted, Richard.
To do something like Vision on Mission, of course, it takes a certain degree of empathy in terms of people coming out of, and these are not the people that are the most, that receive the most empathy in society, because the society, of course, is very aggressive
judgmental.
And judgmental about the criminal element at this point. And these are people who have been involved, have served time, and have now come out. And for many people, they take a position of, I don't even necessarily want you to have a second chance. The society is actually structured that it's difficult to get a second chance, because most places require police certificate of good character. You're going to have an endorsed certificate. It's going to shut a lot of doors. What, how can you encourage people in terms of, other citizens and even businesses? I mean, legal citizens too, like businesses and stuff. How do you negotiate and navigate that kind of pushback that I'm sure that you receive sometimes with regard to that kind of issue?
Well, for me, it starts with acceptance of what the issues really are. And I think to a majority, in the main, the emotions of the society are valid. Because, when you are a victim of crime and you lose a loved one in a very heinous way, your emotions are real, all right? And they have to be considered. And we encourage our clients to accept how the society sees them. It really starts there because that's part of the process of restoration. It's accepting what you have done and the impact it has had on society and it continues to have on society. And my perspective is that it needs to go a bit further. Our responsibility as an NGO is to have discussions with the public in the first instance and get them to see the stories and the lives of persons who commit crime in a different way, for them to understand the personal experiences of these individuals, why they would have done what they would have done, why they would have made certain decisions, what were the factors that would have led them up to making that decision of committing a crime against another human being. And when you do that, I think persons are able to say, you know what, I'm not perfect either. Sometimes I run a red light, but just in that instance, nobody was killed, right? And there are other different things that we do individually that we can say, all right, I'm better than this person. I didn't go in somebody's house and rob and kill them. But at the end of the day, it starts with these small areas of our lives that we look over. So what we try to do is to have persons see things from a different perspective and in some way relate, because that's the only way I think they're going to be able to open up their heart to give someone another chance.
Is it more difficult now? Because we have
Yes.
a 2-day symposium on crime that you're attending today's session. The
Yeah.
society, the region, feels really daunted or oppressed by crime. So the mindset is even more intensified
Yes.
towards quote unquote the criminal element. And as you said, validly so, people are paying for the safety, the lives of their family. So I guess now, is it more difficult now to get people to give an an offender who has served his or her time a chance?
Yes, and I think it is so because there is a lack of education about what is restorative justice in the wider community and why it's important and why having a different perspective is important. The general community does not care to understand why, and they don't know why it's going to make, and because they they are not exposed to the difference that restorative justice, that approach can make in their everyday life. And that's the second point I want to come to. It's about results. It's about sharing the success stories of restorative justice. It's about sharing with the wider community. If you give a criminal a chance to do things the right way, all right, give them an opportunity to work, give them an opportunity to add value to society in a positive way. And you show them, okay, this is how it can affect society in general. And what does that mean practically? It means that's one less person that can potentially rob another person. It's also one less child that is coming from an environment, right, and an intergenerational cycle of crime and violence. So we have to not just look at the short-term wins. in a person not committing crime again, but we also have to look at the long-term effect, medium to long-term effects that one person, if he changes his life, that can have in generations to come. All right. And to me, that's what needs to be shared and with the public in a greater way.
Do you see a lot of evidence of intergenerational criminality in your experience in dealing with criminals? Like, do you see a father and a son and a grandson, or is it just father and son? How intergenerational is it?
Well, the data that we have at hand as an NGO right now, it shows that it can be intergenerational. And more often than not, you see certain factors affecting every generation that makes each individual more vulnerable to crime. So yes, the short answer is yes. All right. So what we have found, we actually have a situation where a father is in prison, his son is in prison. All right, and the son's children are outside, and it's being taken care being taken care of by a relative. And Vision on Mission, we understand the importance of prevention, right? And and yes, we do rehabilitative work, but it is also important to do prevention. So our Triangle of Hope program is targeted towards inmates, both in the convicted and the remanded section, who have children and families on the outside. And based on certain criteria, Vision and Mission is prepared to support these families by being a bridge and network, all right, that would allow them to have access to certain type of social services that are, sometimes these persons, they don't know how to access them. All right, and nobody cares to tell them how to access them because nobody cares about them. They are the scourge of society. And I try to keep making the point, if we neglect these persons that we call scourge of society, they will continue to reproduce children who will make more children, who will continue to terrorize us, as we say in Trinidad, right, language. So we are seeing the importance of breaking those cycles of intergenerational crime and violent behavior, and it starts at the family. All right.
What we see is very high recidivism rates in Trinidad and Tobago, meaning that persons who, I think it's about 65 or 70%, persons who come out, who serve their time, end up going back in because of several different factors. When you get your clients, what is their mindset like? Because I taught those prisons, and I know even if someone went in there and decided, I don't want to be in here again, by the time you pass through that horrific system, remand in Golden Grove or Port of Spain, you come out angry or angrier. If you were what some described as a soft or offender, you come out hardened or more criminalized. So what kind of presentations do you get when the persons come to you? What's their mindset?
So we have persons who have been prisonized. And what that mindset is, they become very accustomed to a certain type of authority that is required for them to do the right thing. So we have to do something called deprisonization, and that is helping the client, assisting the client to come out of that dehumanization experience, because that is what prison does. You know what I'm trying to say.
Dehumanizes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we now have to add back in that human element. So what that means is it's about getting the person to connect to their inner emotions, their values, what motivates them to do better. If you don't address that, they will come out and they will just repeat cycles that they have been living all of their lives that have been reinforced through the prison experience. So I don't know if you want to ask me something. So our approach is to use a number of interventions that would allow the individual to understand, okay, to accept this is where I am now. All right. And these are the steps that I have to take in order to live a successful, healthy life without hurting myself, my family, or others. And that
How much does your system work? What is the data telling you? Is it
yes,
that in terms of I'm just
recidivism rate.
yeah, in terms of the recidivism rate, I'm
Yes.
just what kind of statistics or data are you getting from your intervention in terms of lowering that recidivism rate?
So in
At least
2020,
among the people you interact with.
sure, because again, persons come to Vision and Mission for the most part voluntary. We do have clients who are remanded into our care through the court system, all right, in very rare cases. But for the most part, the majority of our clients come to us voluntarily, all right? And to me, that's the biggest part of our success. Because a person has to decide, I know I need help and I want to change. All right. Now, our recidivism rate for the year of 2021 was 10%. And for those that are listening, I may not understand what that means, is that once a person would have come into Vision and Mission and spent 6 months, all right, let's say we had 60 persons come into Vision and Mission and they stayed within our program for 6 months. Out of that 60 persons, 10 of them for the entire year of 2021 would have been committed a crime and reincarcerated. For the year 2022, our recidivism rate is 3.5%, 3.6% for the 6 months in 2022. So we are still accumulating the data from the prisons for the latter part of 2022. So what that means is our success rate, it fluctuates between 80 to 89%. And for us, we deem that a success, especially understanding the challenges that many of our clients have. Many of them come with mental health challenges, substance abuse challenges, and other types of challenges that make it very difficult for rehabilitation to take place. However, the data is there that shows that our interventions work.
When you track persons who pass through the systems
Correct.
along the way, and is it that you help them get employment, and what do employers tell you first of all? Because you have to be forthright and open and say, well, this person has been incarcerated, but they have gone through our program and we can vouch for them. Is that what happens?
Yes, for those persons that are able to that we are able to assist in getting external employment. All right. Now, again, the policy in the society does not allow and give space, right, for persons who have been incarcerated to really be able to move up the strata in employment opportunities. So when they come out, they only have access to very what I would call low income job opportunities, and that also is very demotivating for those that really want to do well and have excelled in their studies inside of the prison. Many of them come out with degrees, but they are unable to get jobs in specific fields because of that stain on their character. So yes, we do have meetings with stakeholders, and we assign a caseworker to a client. So when we go to a businessman, a business person, we say, listen, we're not just sending him or her to you for employment. This is the type of training they would have, or readiness they would have gone through. So we do job readiness, all right? We do sessions about moral character, integrity, conflict resolution, anger management, all right? To name a few. And also job preparation readiness. So there's a culture that we inculcate within our clients, because when they go out to the business community, they're not just representing themselves, but they're representing vision and mission and the work that we do. All right. So that's how we assist our clients. But, and as an NGO, we are actually going further. There's a saying, while the grass is growing, the horse is starving, right? So while we are in the process of advocating and connecting with the wider community to get them on board, open up your businesses or your heart to employ these persons so that they wouldn't go and rob and steal, right? Rob and kill anybody for anything. What we are also doing as an NGO is we are creating job opportunities for our clients as well as an NGO. So although we are an NGO, there's a sister company that I started, and that is designed to develop small businesses, different businesses that would allow our clients, once they go through a certain level of preparation and training, all right, we also facilitate training of our clients in various areas that they are able to get employment. So we, from CPEP to security to agriculture to barbering, and we have some more.
Do you encourage inmates and train inmates to open their own businesses?
Yes, we do.
What
All
has
right.
that been like? Because then they could employ each other sometimes.
Correct. So I would say it's, for me, it's successful, one, based on the client's knowledge, their determination for success, all right, and also their overall stability. What we have found is that we are in the early stages of being able to support a lot of our clients. We just don't have the resources to do business incubation, type of facilities, offer those type of facilities. But what we do is that we link them with the resources that are available by the state, all right? And we get them ready to access those opportunities in order to build their businesses.
There's this 2-day crime symposium, as you know, is on. What, from a state perspective, because I know the state supports you at some level, what would help restorative justice and more effective rehabilitation generally in Trinidad and Tobago from a state intervention perspective, based on what you've seen of your clients over the years and their needs?
First, it will start with policy. All right, that would provide incentives to various sectors of the community to give inmates, ex-inmates, deportees, and delinquent youth another chance within a specific criteria, once they have met a specific criteria.
Put a pin. Does the state hire ex-offenders?
Now, that's a bit of a gray area.
I'll put you on the spot. Because
Yes.
to me, if the state is serious about restorative justice and rehabilitation and understanding what you indicated earlier on, that, well, if someone goes through a program like yours successfully, they should have another chance. If
Yeah.
you don't give them another chance, they're more likely to re-offend.
That's correct.
So that's why I asked the question. If the state is leading by example, the state should be employing, under particular parameters,
Correct.
ex-offenders. Does the state do that from your data?
In a very small, minor way, and it's not known. So if it happens very rarely. But for the majority, in the main, no. And that is where significant improvement needs to take place. And so that's why I said, from a policy perspective, all right, that would lend its way into the state also, all right, employing persons who have run afoul of the law.
Because I remember about 4 or 5 years ago on a GSC, a young man came. I think the issue was restorative justice, an inquiry, and he got a degree.
Yeah.
And he was an ex-offender, and he went through the entire job evaluation assessment process. And when he got to the point and he indicated, well, I want to be forthright and tell you that I am an ex-offender. He was shut down, and he
Yes.
came because he could not get a job in the state sector. Although he
Which
came
goes,
to that,
which I suppose goes, Giselle, to the whole issue of policy and
Yeah.
policy direction of the state. Because I remember, and when the election process was taking place, the general elections, and we were interviewing various politicians going up for various seats, we did ask anybody that came to our, in terms of our panel, um, in, in terms of articulating what they stood for, we always ask certain questions at the end of an interview, what to get to the bottom of what's your character like, what's your philosophy, what's your lens on life, what do you stand for, and personally, not the party, but
Yes.
personally, what do you stand for? And one of the questions we would often ask is, what's your position with regard to offenders? And if it is that they're, after 5 years or 10 years, whatever period of time, that police certificates are expunged if you have committed no further offense. And the law to that degree, so it gives those offenders an opportunity to reintegrate, so that after 5 years or 7 years, of course, categories of crimes that
Correct.
would be that would allow this. It wouldn't necessarily be for all, but certain categories of crimes, offenses that are committed, that after 5 years or 7 years or whatever it is, that once you apply for a police certificate of character, it's automatically expunged, because you've served your time, and the law now allows you that second chance because you have no further offenses. And those are kinds of policy directions that state officials seem gun shy about. No pun
And I'll
intended.
tell you why they're gun shy about it, because it's not attractive. It doesn't gather a lot of votes. Because you see, at the end of the day, you have the mass that's saying, we're giving them a chance for, they're only doing this and they're doing that, and they had the country this and in this condition and whatever. And instead of taking the bull by the horn and instituting a national penal reform system that will enable different sectors of the society to be able to fill in the gaps where there now exists. All right, there exists a lot of gaps in the whole entire process, from crime detection to conviction, to the judicial system, to the prison system, to the community correctional system, and then the transition into the rehabilitation system, and then restoration. Those are a number of steps that you're going to have policies that would allow for various agencies, including NGOs, all right, and FBOs, to work in a very synergistic way with clear guidelines, with clear policies. That doesn't exist. So there are, of
but on
course,
the other hand, politicians will tell you, or they may not say it publicly, but they will harbor these thoughts that, well, these people are offenders. They made a choice to do what and what. Yes, they saved their time in prison. But why should I put resources where they're concerned, and somebody who has no friend and hungry in Barrackpore or Champlain or Sangre Grande?
because the goal
It always comes down to that kind of dichotomy, unfortunately.
unfortunately, because this is my opinion, there's a lack of understanding aside from what I call international, transnational crime with narcotics and drugs, right? That's a whole different paradigm. But as it relates to local crime, all right, crimes of passion, theft, and all of these different things, there's a lack of, to answer your question, there's a lack of understanding as to what is going to bring the solution. And there's a lack of, to me, accepting that that is what it takes. But you see, if you don't try it and you don't put in the measures to measure the success, if it is you put in the policy and you say, okay, out of 100 offenders, once they went through the system, all right, that ends up with a business owner receiving a tax incentive for hiring X amount of inmates, right? Persons in a very structured environment, nobody, right? And that's what the policy would speak to as well. And you see the success stories, and you have the data that's able to say, okay, out of these 100 persons, 90% have not gone on to commit a crime.
It's a
That is
success.
success.
In the last couple of minutes, are you willing to take some calls?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right. The numbers are 222-TALK, 222-8255, 612-8255. North Americans, toll free, 866-525-1019. And our guest is Vision and Mission. Are you the director now, managing director?
See you.
The CEO,
Yes.
Giselle Chance. We're talking restorative justice.
Yeah, so we're taking your calls, 222-TALK, 222-8255. And North Americans, toll free at 866-525-1099. The lines are open now.
For the next 5 minutes, because Giselle has to go just now.
Yeah, she has to go to the...
But are you seeing light at the end of the tunnel?
There's a saying my father has that I have adopted. Once there's life, there's hope. So I'm a glass half full kind of person. So I don't look at what has not occurred, what is yet to happen. I've looked at what we have achieved, and I look forward to what we can achieve.
Well, I hope you're a glass full person, because you have to have optimism dealing with ex-offenders.
Oh, yes, if you don't.
All right, we do have a call. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'll hear. I used to on his show. Let me say that as potential victims and my mother having her store robbed and the criminal jumping over the counter and almost landing on the head of my 3-year-old daughter, he couldn't. That has left a mark on me. And she would have died. Understand?
Yes.
So we tend to be very hostile towards criminals in general. And I don't know that asking for sympathies and whatnot from people who suffer these kinds of invasion, current word, is going to go anywhere. These guys need to be stopped dead in the tracks, and then perhaps the younger ones might get some sympathy. If you've committed a crime against someone, they're going to hold that against you. Thank you.
So, caller, I just want to thank you for sharing your experience. I'm so sorry your family had to endure that experience, and I understand. But what I would also like to say is that I do not advocate for sympathy for persons who have committed a crime. What I advocate for is a system that would ensure that they don't commit a crime again. All right? And that's what it's all about. So sometimes and I too, could get really emotional about all the different types of crime that I hear. But what's going to solve the problem is not showing ex-inmates sympathy, but is giving them an opportunity and providing the framework for them to come out of a life of crime and choose not, and the motivation to choose not to go that way again.
All right. You have another call. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning to the host. I have a question for the host. I have heard you mention that quite a lot of prisoners graduate with degrees. I would like to know how many prisoners left the prison on discharge with degrees. Please give me the answer in numbers and not percentages. I'm listening, officer.
Okay, thank you, caller, for that question. Unfortunately, I don't have that data at hand. All right, that is data that the Commissioner of Prisons should be able to provide. So maybe one day you can interview him and find out.
Or we'll try to get it for you, the caller.
Yes.
I'll actually call the Commissioner of Prisons. I hope I remember today to try that.
But to clarify, not a lot of prisoners come out with degrees. To be honest, the average inmate has not gone past primary school education. Education is a significant factor in persons committing crime in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, lack of education.
Lack of education.
Just I know you have to run off. Closing comments.
Thank you. So, closing comments. I would like to thank you all for having me on this morning, and I really want to direct my comments to the wider community, and I want to say that the work that I do is a very difficult one because I have to hear every day from callers like what we had on this morning. Why are you telling us to um, see inmates or prisoners or criminals in a different way? All right, why are you advocating for giving them another chance? And the reason why Vision Mission is doing the work that it is doing is because we love you, we love our country, and we want to make Trinidad and Tobago a safer place. Making it a safer place means that we have to treat with these individuals. If no one treats with them, what will happen? And that's the question I want to leave you all
There we
with.
go, friend. Giselle, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Giselle. Interesting conversation.
Most welcome. Have a great
All right.
day.
All the best to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's 7:50. The phone lines are still open.
So you could call in and give your opinion. You'd have heard the interview with Giselle Chance. So you could weigh in on what you think in terms of the work that she's doing, the work that the NGO is doing, of which she is the CEO.
The data is there. One of the most significant factors that predisposes someone to criminal activity is shortfalls in their education. Most of the persons I spoke to in prison, and the data supported, would not have even completed secondary school, in some instances not completed primary school for several different reasons. And they fall through the cracks. So we should be sounding the loudest alarm when we hear that 2,500 or so students every year do not complete secondary school of the 18,500 or so that write SC and are supposed to transition. And we are not doing enough work to find out what happens to them, why they fell out, why they stopped going to school, and where they are and what they're doing. We just say, okay, well,
I know it's a point you always make, and it's a very valid point.
Yeah, and then the data show the transition to criminal activity if they don't get killed on the streets, you understand, and end up incarcerated and end up spending 15 years of their life, sometimes at 18 years old and 20 years old, behind prison walls, and then they come out, they know more about behind prison walls than they know about life outside. How are they going to readapt? They're coming out to a whole new world, nobody they know there. Not to mention the deportees. So I mean, the crime symposium, I know, is dealing with these issues on some level, but we don't seem to have the will for the level of reform of the education system that we should. We talk a lot. When all else fails, say student support services dealing with it and move on, as if that's the panacea. But an under-resourced student support services and a curriculum that does not factor into now what a 10-year-old is facing now, what a 15-year-old is facing now in the world, what is available to them when we had to leave our houses to go and find trouble coming into your phone. You understand? You don't leave your house here. So it's a different time, and the school curriculum has to factor that in. And the socializing agents, religious bodies, NGOs, Boy Scouts, Girl Guides, National Service, all of that has to factor in. We have a Ministry of Youth and National Service.
We do.
A whole ministry.
Yeah. Let's grab this call. Good morning.
Yes, Pinal again. So I know she was pressed for time. The broader point I'm making is that we can identify some of the communities where a lot of criminals come from. The 14-year-old that invaded the house in Rang West with a 19-year-old and another one in his 20s. The 14-year-old came from Block 22 in Laventille. Has anybody gone up there, to try and take some evasive action so that we don't produce more criminals? If you're producing a 14-year-old and a 19-year-old from a certain kind of environment, clearly identifiable, that's where you need to go. Finding out if there's drugs in the Bahamas and so on will help the Bahamas. I mean, they can deal with that. So I'm just saying that are we tackling problem before it begins? Are we doing, let's say, preventative maintenance? Or we just saying, okay, you've committed a crime, we have a program for you? That's good, because there are people walking around who have committed crimes. But can we take some early action before he commits a crime and ends up doing more than he intended to?
Mr. Pina, can I add something to your content?
Yes.
Are you equally advocating that we go into areas where people are highly educated, come from affluent families, and open businesses that are facilitating transnational drugs and guns?
Well, yes, that goes without saying. But
They didn't say it though.
the reason why you get more attention for this kind of thing is that it is several steps removed from that, what you just described.
Well, it's not, because the boy on the block in block 44 and some of his cohort using illegal guns brought in by they didn't bring it in. They didn't have the means to bring it in. So we disconnect the white collar criminal from the blue collar criminal all the time.
I love these simple-minded approaches because...
Oh, it's simple-minded? Yours not simple-minded?
I could buy one, I don't have one. So I'm just saying that, that's a very weak argument. We hear that all the time, and then we get diverted to white-collar crime and so on when we have people invading our homes. We like to deal with the edge of the knife more than we like to deal with the guy selling the knife. If you are invading homes, there ought to be a pushback at that level, not taking away from everything else that has to be done. But to say that we don't make guns here and the guy who is using it is not bringing it and all of that, at every stage of the game there is a choice. And if you make a choice, I'm going to be a criminal with a gun, there ought to be consequences for that. And it is not to be excused by saying that I didn't bring this gun and somebody give me this gun. So are you an idiot or a robot or something? The people who are guiding you when you're growing up, what is their responsibility? If you send by commission or omission, you send your child out, commit a home invasion, and he comes back in a box, that's on you. That's not on the guy who brought the gun in, and even if it is, whose loss it is? You have lost your child. That's your loss. The guy who brought the gun in, he really doesn't care. And he's going to continue. It's on you to make sure that your children do not go out there and face the risk of coming back in a box, either at the hands of the victim or the police or any other person. Thank you.
But I think it goes back to dysfunctionality, and dysfunctionality can happen anywhere. And if it is that you had a robust system, getting back to the education point of view, Paul, because you are mandated by law to go to school up to a certain age, I think maybe it's 16. If it is that you had a robust system whereby births occur every year, you are tracking that in terms of the data, people entering the school system, you will pick up when somebody is not in the school system and obviously being truant, and that indicates some level of dysfunctionality, and state needs to intervene.
We need to go further than that, because there are also some who go through all 5 years of primary and secondary school and still come up without a functional education.
Well, yeah, but that's the education part of it. I'm talking about the dysfunctionality part of it.
That person that does not come out effectively is also dysfunction.
Well, no, because the current structure of the education system might not have catered for their skill set. So that's a larger...
And that's dysfunction.
Yeah, but that's a dysfunction with the system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm saying all of these dysfunctionalities kind of mesh, and this complicated web starts to form of all of these things that feed into the criminal element, not only here, but pretty much in the rest of the Caribbean, because we're kind of similar in the way of how we see things. And it really takes revolution in terms of the education system and picking up dysfunctionality in families and addressing it forcefully.
Agreed.
The white collar crime, you have to put in more stringent issues. I know the financial part of it, always following the money always leads you to where the criminality is happening at that level.
It does.
And
Trinidad and Tobago.
well, if we were doing it aggressively,
You mean it's supposed to?
it's supposed to.
Okay, all right.
Following the money always tells you. So that's legislative framework, that's institutions, that's strengthening institutions, making them independent, fortifying them against corruption. You also have to deal with corruption. All of that is part of this whole toxic mix of criminality in this country. Corruption is also a huge part of it.
Yep, it is 8 a.m. News is next.